and she was the thing. And I've had people write, I can't believe you didn't put it back, blah, 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 blah. But the thing was that with, no problem, when she was in the group and Ben was himself, what it did is like what Steve did, a different way, but it gave me different cast members to play with, and that meant I wouldn't be telling exactly the same stories that had been told at that time for, 61, 71, 81, 91, 30 years, or thereabouts. So,
Sword of Omens, come to my hand. I, Lion-O, command it. Thundercats, ho!
Good morning, everybody. Great to see you. Very excited to start this excellent panel with the brain trust of one of the great characters, four great characters, who am I kidding, for decades, and really the first of the Marvel age, the Fantastic Four. And it's so wonderful to see everybody. Immediately next to me, the editor-in-chief of Marvel, C.B. Cebulski. Good morning, everybody. We have next to him, fantastic writer. Brilliant. I mean, really, everybody on the panel is fantastic. No pun intended with us talking about the Fantastic Four. But the great Steve Englehart, everybody. Next to him, one of the great iconic writers and artists of the Marvel age, the great Walter Simonson. Another wonderful artist that we've been enjoying, I've been enjoying at least for the last 20 years, currently drawing the FF with Ryan Kelly, Humberto Ramos. What did I say?
Ryan North.
Ryan North, I'm sorry, I said Ryan Kelly, didn't I? All right, thank you. And then finally, but certainly not least, the Grandmaster of the X-Men, who also had very distinct runs on the Fantastic Four, even going back to Marvel Team Up back in the day. Chris Claremont, everybody. CB, I'll start with you just because, and we'll go to Humberto. The current run, I mean, my God, Ryan North has just been killing it. And it's so interesting because, and I'm sure it's a challenge for the company in general, what's left to be said after 60-plus years of the FF? And Ryan keeps finding ways, and Humberto keeps drawing amazing stories.
Well, I guess that's the challenge for most Marvel comics, and FF in particular, given its history. It's not a challenge for the people with the right imagination. Right imagination providing the words for the artist to draw, and then for an artist like Humberto who has the most fantastic imagination. You know, they always say that the only limitations that you can put on creativity in comics is that of your own imagination. And I think, what Ryan has been doing, previous to Humberto coming on, telling single-issue stories for the most part, or two-parters, exploring the different members of the Fantastic Four, taking them out of New York, to time loops, everything else that he's done, really appealed to a lot of people. He's read some more science-based FF too, given how, his background. And then, now he's coming on with Humberto, launching the new book right around the time of the film. No coincidence there. Just telling a grander story, but, still focusing on the character development in ways that we hadn't seen before. And they still haven't gotten rid of that damn mustache on Johnny.
Not the first complaint I've heard about Johnny's mustache,
but
so I understand.
No, it's just, for all the gentlemen on the panel who've written the book, they all bring their own take to it. And Humberto and Ryan are doing such a great job now with those characters.
Real fast, I have to be Ed Sullivan for a second. Right now, in our audience, I'm going to point her out for all of you if you don't know. The fantastic wife of Walter Simonson, a wonderful editor and writer in her own right, Wheezy Jones, Louise Simonson, ladies and gentlemen. All right, for the old timers, was that all right? Was that a decent Ed? All right, good deal. Humberto, I want to ask, handling both the adventure and the soap opera, and you've written very wonderful, intimate comics as well. Good balance? You enjoy doing both?
When I first asked to draw the Fantastic Four, I was really worried. It's not the kind of book that I've been doing. So I kind of did a lot of research about the. I mean, I knew the characters, of course, but then I went deeper on that rabbit hole, and I start learning for real how important it is to the Marvel universe. And so working with Ryan was amazing discovery. I wasn't really aware of his work. When you draw comics, you don't have a lot of free time to read them. That's a shame, but that's a real thing. Well, at least it is for me. So So when I started working with him and discovering the way he develops character, and I love doing that. I love more than doing the actions sequences and that. I like, you know, to draw characters and trying to express their feelings through the images and that. So it's that way it's been awesome because and the way he writes and as you said the science involved in this particular take of the Fantastic Four is, even to me, it's like going back to school, you know, because he puts all these science info in it and trying to fit the superhero stories as, within some science that you can actually learn something. It's pretty cool. I'm loving it. Yeah.
That's great. Well, and also consistent with the movie, which obviously really went into the characterization and the personas and the, you know, who these people are and everything. And again, you're a great artist to kind of reflect that kind of soap opera and characterization because you've always conveyed that kind of, I think, belief in your characters.
Yeah, it's been a delightful, you know, time with them, and I'm hoping I'm staying for long there. It's up to C.B.
Don't worry, you got a long future ahead of you, kid.
Cool. 90 years, like it.
Humberto, remind me, what was your story with your create your own thing you did with Paul Jenkins? Because that was really when I really started paying attention to you particularly and everything. What was the name of that book?
Revelations.
Revelations,
Yeah.
absolutely. Outstanding. Real interesting religion and things like that.
Yeah.
Have we, and your run with FF has just started, but I really do love that Ben Grimm is such a religious character and that he really embraces his Judaism and everything. Do you, I mean, without spoiling, are we getting into any religious aspects with Ryan? Do you know?
So far, you know, the stories we've been working with hasn't gone that way yet. I don't know, you know. So again, that is
Sure.
up to Ryan. But I'm willing to touch all the corners of the characters because I you know, being Mexican, a big thing of ourselves is family-oriented, you know, things. Everything's about family in Mexico.
Sure.
So I'm really happy doing this book that is about mom, dad, sister, you know, brother, all the kind of things that I'm aware and I'm you know, I do like every day or used to do because now I'm a dad, and so I would like to go deeper on that side of the story, aside that the superhero adventure you know, books that we like to read. I am really into the family side.
Always one of the big hallmarks of the FF, no question. So that's great to hear. I'll ask you later about who you might really enjoy to draw, but I want to move on to Steve, because Steve, remind me, who was doing FF before you, and how did you end up getting the job? If you don't mind picking up a microphone. Either one. Either one.
There you go.
There you go. Excellent.
Well, John Byrne did it forever.
Right.
And then there was like a period, I think Roger Stern might have been in there. There were, you know, it was kind of like finding somebody. But clearly my run was where I broke up the family. So
Yeah.
I thought after Byrne had been on it for so long, I just was getting a little tired of, you know, I mean, it was his, the status quo. It was his take, right? But it was the family. But it was like, you know, I wanted to get back to the stuff from the original FF, right, where they were making it up as they went along. They didn't really have they weren't used to doing what they were doing, and so what I did was have Reed to take care of Franklin and let Ben be in charge and get a couple new people. And so, I was the sort of breaking up the family. I mean, I didn't think of it in those terms, but that was the idea of kind of just take a different approach to it and hit some notes that hadn't been hit for a long time.
Who were your other members? Remind me.
Well, there was Crystal.
Yeah, of course, Crystal, absolutely, from the Indians.
Crystal, who I used in Vision Witch and things like that, and I always liked Crystal.
Yeah.
And Ms. Marvel, who was a real damaged character, and I thought that was interesting to have, because the vibe is usually family and
Working together.
yeah, working together to have a character who was, I mean, she preferred in the end to be a thing to actually being who she was. They were just interesting characters to me, and I thought it particularly with Ben in charge and Johnny as the other person, it got for me what I was getting out of the original stuff when they didn't, when they weren't icons, when they were, they're just like, here we are, we got the powers, what are we supposed to do with them, So that was where I went with it.
And Ben, obviously, kind of an insecure leader and a kind of questioning leader.
Well, not too insecure, I don't think. I didn't see him as insecure, but I mean, unused to it. I mean, he'd always been the fourth wheel in that sense.
The muscle.
He was the guy who was different from everybody else.
Sure.
And to put him in charge, I thought was interesting,
Agreed.
So.
No, absolutely. Walter, you had a very different FF for a lot of different reasons. Am I right? It was in the mid of your run, but everyone loves that iconic photo of the Fantastic Four, but it's not the Fantastic. Remind people of your Strange group to begin with.
Well, when I took it over, there was look. I just made it up as I went along. That's really what's going on. That's it'll be all, but that's really when I took it over, Ben was human, and I forgot, it was Sherry, I think was her name, who was the Thing.
Ms. Marvel.
Ms.
Right.
Marvel was, and she was the Thing. And I've had people write, I can't believe you didn't put it back, blah, 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 blah. But the thing was that with, no pun, when she was in the group and Ben was himself, what it did is, look what Steve did, a different way, but it gave me different cast members to play with, and that meant I wouldn't be telling exactly the same stories that had been told at that time for, 61, 71, 81, 91, 30 years, right. Or thereabouts. So you had to kind of find different stories to tell, and I enjoyed it. That's why I kind of left it like that. By the time I was done, I put them back together. I did have an editorial edict that had come to me when I took over the book, which is that Tom DeFalco, who was the editor-in-chief of Marvel at the time, had decided that the Fantastic Four had to have Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben in the book all the time. He didn't like having them broken up. So
part of the reason that I left.
I know. I wasn't going to bring that up. I just thought I'll just skate past this. So, but what it meant was I didn't have the option of dumping anybody. I did leave Ben as a human being for a good chunk. I did like 18 issues, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
And so I left Ben human. In the end, I put Ben. He went back to being the Thing. And I played, there had been an earlier storyline, I don't remember when, God knows, I don't know if Jack did it or somebody else, where the Thing grew a bunch of extra spikes and...
That was our run.
Was that in your run?
Yeah.
And I went back to that because it looked cool. I already drawn the regular Thing for a while with Sherry, so I was able to use that, gave me different graphics for it, and also made him, if anything, even stronger. So that was kind of fun. And I just, I was inspired by the Lee Kirby stuff, where really I thought the FF, until of course the X-Men, had the best rogues gallery in the Marvel Universe. Had all the great villains were FF villains, and which was strange because my first story was, okay, you can't. It was some crossover. What was the name of that? Acts of Vengeance or some mutant?
The
registration
X-Men crossover
or something like that. So
all of the above.
some of that.
Yeah.
I had to write it, and
a lot of tie-ins.
And the idea was that, you can't use any of the regular villains, the cast members in your book. You have to use other villains. And I went, but the FF have all the good villains. I can't use any of those guys? And so my idea was, all right, I'm going to find the lamest villains in the Marvel Universe, and I'm going to pack them all into these 3 issues I have to write.
Well, that's why they were all mutants.
That's why they were, listen. So, Orca and Sandman, and I don't even remember the Paste Pot Pete, whatever he became, Trapster. All the loony guys. And that's why my first 3 covers are all pictures of, like this one right here, available now at Old Navy, my first cover. They're not paying me to say that. I had to buy the damn shirt myself. I don't get it from Marvel. But all the guys in the background are all these lame guys, and the Thing is looking around and going, you're kidding, right? And that's the tagline for my first 3 covers, and that's why. So I worked out, and it worked out well. I mean, I didn't draw those issues, but it was fun to do. So the FF was really, it was like a playground. And then I got to use some of the neat villains. Eventually, I got to a Dr. Doom story that I'm really delighted with, where I got to do some stuff that I thought nobody else had really done in a comic. I haven't seen it since, and I wouldn't go back and do it again. But a time jump story that I thought worked out really well, kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure comic book a little bit. But I like, again, family aspect. I didn't have the thing in the torch like in the old days. In the early days, they used to scrap all the time. And I figured by this time, 30 years later, when they're still the same age, they kind of gotten past that stage of their lives. So I didn't do that. But I still thought it was really fun just to write and draw those guys. And it was kind of a high concept book because of Reed's science fiction background. There was a lot of stuff you could do, and I would like to have done more, but I wrapped it up after a time. But I wrapped it up on what I regard as kind of a high note with that, and using the time variance authority. One quick thing about that: in real life, there is a TVA. The TVA is the Tennessee Valley Authority. They brought electrification to rural areas in the Tennessee River Valley out in Tennessee. I was born in Tennessee. I moved out of there when I was like 2.5 years old. But my father was a big fan of the TVA and actually worked out of one of their buildings for the government for other stuff. So it was really my tip of the hat to something that my father had loved. And it worked out with time variance authority, worked out really well. Last thing I'll say is if you go back and look at the comic book where you see the TVA's headquarters, they're flying in space as a giant, one of those giant structures you see, and there's a clock on the front. And if you look at that clock carefully, it's not any real time. It does have two hands on it, but they aren't pointing at anything you would actually get ever in a real clock between the minute hand and the hour hand. I'm done.
That's hilarious. You're not done, because I wanted to ask about the weird for Spider-Man, Wolverine, Ghost Rider. Because honestly, it was just like, wait, who, what? Hulk, was it She-Hulk, right, or Hulk? Regular Hulk.
The regular Hulk.
And Punisher.
Sort of the Punisher. Arthur didn't want to do the Punisher because he didn't like the Punisher. He liked the Punisher when he was a bad guy, didn't like him as a good guy. And I said, hey, I don't go. Basically, I was going to take 3 issues off and gain some time. I gained no time. I just burned all of it, and it was late when I started again. But Arthur drew 3 issues. We had a great time, and basically I did what I do with a lot of artists if I'm writing for them. I said, who do you want to draw? And we decided also, we talked to Carol Kalish, and we figured our sales, and the best-selling comics right then, the most popular characters, were Ghost Rider, who just come out recently, and Spider-Man, and Wolverine, and the Punisher. Arthur didn't want to do the Punisher. I said, I don't care. And who do you want to do? I want to draw the Hulk on a motorcycle. Okay, we can do that, not a problem. That's like what artists often do. They will often tell you stuff that really has nothing to do with story. And really, it didn't start off as the new FF. It was just going to be, we'll do this guy, we'll add this guy, we'll add this guy. And somewhere after we had them together, I thought, dang, there's 4 of them. It's the new FF. And it was kind of like the Hulk for the Thing, and Ghost Rider for the Torch, and Spider-Man for Reed Richards. I'm not sure about Wolverine for Sue, but we couldn't make it exact. But it was really just a lark. And at the end, I told Arthur, I said, look, we're in the 3rd issue. The Punisher's really popular. We have to put him in. And I said, well, if I don't have to draw the whole thing, the whole character, I said, okay. So we put on the cover, we have one of those inset circles they used to do, and it's just a shot of his chest with a skull emblem on it. Sure. And if you go, and then he showed up in a helicopter, a Punisher helicopter, looked down and said, oh, I guess it's all done, and flew away. So he had nothing to do with the story. And what we did do is on those 3 titles, if you go back, all the FFs, at least for years, had what the world's greatest comic magazine across the top. So we changed that on those 3 issues. I don't remember what they all were now. I think one of them was the world's most commercialist comic magazine, since we were doing all these characters, and there were other goofy ones on the rest of them. So we just did it. It was really just for fun. I was delighted Arthur drew it. And the Mole Man is there because he's one of Arthur's favorite villains. So I really tried to write stuff that Arthur wanted to draw and make a story out of it, and that's how that came about.
Great run, and that particular kernel of it just always killed me. So, by the way, everybody, I hope you have questions. Please, if you do, come on up, line up to the microphone now while I ask Chris a question, because I haven't had a chance to talk to Chris about his interesting
they're
run.
embarrassed to come up. They could just raise their hands.
Well, yeah.
Well, no, all right. Here's the
Say
guy.
he's going to come up. Excellent.
do it.
Feel free, man, and then I'll talk to Chris when you're done. But please, and other people hopefully will follow in kind.
The question I have is, when you looked at the early FF that Lee and Kirby did, and how much of the Marvel Universe came out of that, was there any hesitation or intimidation, maybe?
It was 100 issues. So, yeah,
but now you're stepping into that world with that classic run. Did you pitch? Was it just offered? Was there any concern when you
I
took
would
the
just say
job?
no.
No.
Yeah, it was far. I mean, I started on like 304 or something like that. I mean, it was.
Far
I
enough
loved
away.
all that early stuff. That's why I wanted to reference it. But it was so far into it, I didn't feel that I was following Kirby and Lee. You know, and so.
You're also, back then especially, it's all work for hire. You're being hired to pick up the gauntlet and do these characters. And I get that question a lot from Star Wars. Like, what was it like to draw Star Wars? It was like a paycheck. I mean, really, I'm hired to do this stuff. So, I love doing it. I'm hugely inspired by Stan and Jack's work, Steve Ditko, all the early Marvel guys. But by the time I was in comics, all that stuff was a little ways back. And we all knew what the job was. The job was to pick these characters up and do them. So it wasn't intimidating so much. Okay. Having Frank Miller do some stuff was intimidating sometimes. Yeah. But really it was not. It was just really your job.
Okay. And then just a quick comment before I sit. I'm of the right age. That the covers that had Ghost Rider and Wolverine as part of the team, that was my first Fantastic Four book. I couldn't help it. That cover, I just had to buy it.
So, so it worked.
It worked.
Absolutely. Before we get to the next question, Chris, I wanted to ask you about your run. And I know all of you, when you take over a book, it's kind of a soft reboot, or certainly just a different writer perspective and certainly from an art standpoint as well. But you were coming, Chris, after Heroes Reborn, if I remember correctly. Is that right, Chris?
I'm sorry, what?
Am I right about that? That your run started after Heroes Reborn?
I have no idea.
Okay, but tell me about, and also specifically, the idea of Valeria, and also Valeria as Dr. Doom's daughter as opposed to Reed's daughter.
Well, see, my relationship with the FF is a little weird, because the first American comic I ever bought was FF 48. I mean, I was walking home from high school and walked into the coffee shop, and I saw this cover. I thought, it looks interesting. I flipped through it, and I thought, this looks interesting. So I coughed up my 12 cents.
Where were you at the time? And where were you living?
Yeah.
In a house.
What country? Smart ass.
On the South Shore of Long Island in the town of Massapequa.
Oh,
which
okay.
is almost, actually, it's a little bit creepier and further into the ozone than Walters. But we're still only 30 miles outside of New York. But, I mean...
Remind us of 48. Was that the Black Panther? I mean, it was...
No, this is the first Galactus story.
First, of course, the classic. All right, there you go. Forget
and I'll
it.
just
Have
jump
you
in
not
to say
seen the
my
movie?
first book was 49.
Well, there you go.
That's why the last week when my wife and I went to see FF, I'm sitting there watching it and I think, I know this story. But which I thought was a really cool thing. But
sure.
What makes it important from my perspective is reading those 3 issues was what hooked me on Stan and Jack, and getting hooked on Stan and Jack was what led me to Thor, which led me to Roy and John on the Avengers, and thinking, that's only 12 cents, what the heck? And I kept reading, and the more I read, the more interesting I found it, and eventually, when I went off to college, that's when I ended up pitching stuff. So it's all their fault.
That's awesome.
So when I got the FF, I mean, I'd just been hired back to Marvel after I got fired the first time. And the deal was, I will write any book you have, including Millie the Model, except the mutants. I will not go near the mutants. It's just, don't Don't ask me. Then, like, not long after that, the FF came available. It's just been rebooted. Scott Lobdell, I think, was right.
Yep.
He and Alan Davis had just done their 3-issue opening arc, and my thought was, Alan Davis, I'll grab it, because Scott had quit. And instead I got linked up with...
was it Salvador LaRocca?
Salvador.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, my memory, crystal clear.
CB.
And it was absolute delight. And my attitude was, Stan and Jack did 100 issues. I'm not going to go anywhere near that. It was fun. It was brilliant. I'm just, screw it. I'm just going to have a good time, because from my perspective, the stories that hooked me, that made Marvel a real entity to me, had been done in 1967, 68. I'm not going to worry about that. I don't have to beat anything. I'm just going to have a good time. And that's, and yet again, I got fired. But that's a whole different story.
No, I'm really, and again, you'll forgive me for not remembering that Galactus story. It started at FF48. I'm second generation FF. The Treasury reprint of the Galactus saga is where I hooked into the Fantastic Four. But
one quick note.
Please.
Steve said this. Nobody heard it, I think. Your first issue of the FF.
Followed the Galactus.
It was 49.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of all that.
Oh, wow.
And
pick up the mic,
after
Steve.
that, it's the same story. It sucked me right in.
Yeah.
I will just say I was in a small actually Middletown, Connecticut, where I went to college.
You were Wesleyan graduate?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You didn't?
My brother went.
Yeah.
Secrets revealed.
Secrets of the comics.
There was a newsstand in Middletown where they never cleaned anything off, and I was able to go down and buy like 3 months of Everybody, which really sucked me into the soap opera and the continuity and and all that kind of stuff. That's how I got here.
So you're in the midst of Johnny and Wyatt Wingfoot being college roommates and everything? Wasn't that part of that story and everything?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of FF50. You can have a double-sized issue, but the last third of it's got to be something different, like, I don't know, Johnny going off to college. Yeah. And that lasted a long time.
Not as long as Franklin was 9 years old.
Right.
That's a good point, too.
That was his superpower.
Is he still 9 years old?
Yeah, I don't even know how old Humberto, do you know how old Franklin is now, currently?
He's a teenager now.
Is he a teenager?
Yeah.
And Valeria, is she like 10 or 11? I guess,
I think more like
13?
High school, right? Like.
Oh, is she older?
Yeah.
2 years between them, 3 years between them. I forget.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
It's Marvel.
They're dating.
They're
dating
Marvel
age.
ages. Peter
Sure.
Parker is 26 to 29. You never really know.
under 20, I'll say, and they are on dating age. So I would like to explore that thing. That would be awesome.
Oh, my God, yes. Well, also, Hickman yesterday, and I hope you were really thinking about this, he mentioned in the Marvel panel he would like to do Power Pack as, like, teenagers or even older, maybe.
Oh, my
And it's like, that's a great idea. Wouldn't that be interesting? I think that would be really interesting.
Just completely different from this, but we did get a pitch years ago for a Power Pack Max title.
What, they're on Social Security?
And it was pretty, they were washed up superheroes.
Oh, wow.
Teen superheroes and stuff. But the young gentleman that pitched that book was named James Gunn.
Oh, there you go. Oh, wow. Well, I just want to point out to Louise, of course, the one of the queens of Power Pack with June. It's like, yeah, I don't think so. No, definitely not. So I love that, Louise. That's outstanding.
Yeah, we didn't do it.
That's fantastic.
And I will say that I also created Tommy and Billy Maximoff, who are now, they've grown 3 times as fast as anybody else.
Absolutely. Yeah, man.
So.
No, that's great. Again, Steve, that's why you've had this, all of you have had such a varied career. And we've all weekend we haven't talked about West Coast Avengers and Wanda and Vision and the like. But, sir, please.
Okay, I'm not trying to be biased here, but this is a question for Chris and Walter, because you were 2 of the first books that I bought when I was a kid, and they were both Paul the Mutants. What would you say was the best arc you worked on, or comic book?
In general?
In general.
Like the best
In the FF?
Anything.
I think he means any Marvel, and that's fine. It's all, everything's fair game, guys.
That we ever did, you mean?
That you ever did, yeah.
Best writing.
You could be DC. No offense to CB, but
Well, one of my favorites. We sold like 5 copies, but one of my favorites is Orion for DC.
Yes.
I thought my artwork at that hit like a real peak on that book. I have other ones I really enjoyed, and there are things in the FF I'm really proud of. That was when I got my first Xerox machine. So suddenly there's all this graphic crap in there. Based out of Dover, copyright-free books, op art, stuff like that, checker patterns that fold into themselves. So I had a lot of that stuff going on, and that was exciting to be able to do that. Of course, those pages are all now super yellow and falling apart because it's all rubber cement. But I like some of that stuff. I really experimented in the FF in a way I had not been able to do before. And so those would be that, and I did a strip 1,000,000 years ago called Manhunter. And,
yay!
And that remains the favorite of many people. I was 6 months into my career when I started that, so I was very young, relatively speaking.
And teamed up with one of
I
the
also
best
had
writers ever.
had one of the best, maybe the best writer I ever got to work with, as far as our being able to. And I've worked with a lot of writers I've really enjoyed and really done well with. But Archie Goodwin wrote that and came up with the idea and wrote it. And for whatever reason, we really synced up. So Manhunter remains a sentimental favorite.
50-year classic.
It's all downhill after that.
Well, it's been all done. Well, for some of my fans, yes. Oh, I loved your Manhunter. So.
How about it, Chris?
I loved his Manhunter.
There you go.
And what about your book, Chris? What was your favorite that you worked on? Besides X-Men.
Well, yeah, whatever.
That's excellent. Yeah, leave that out.
Well, that's fine.
I did like X-Titans. The X-Men.
Ha!
It's a book that I'm very proud of. Terry Austin did a fabulous inking job. Had a good story from Chris.
And
Best
Louise
opening
Jones
page
was a great
commercial
editor.
ever.
I'm happy with that one.
Me too.
So.
Thank you.
That's awesome. I'll add, by the way, your Orion was great. All the really interesting writers that take the new gods and put a new spin on them and stuff, and that's what Rom V is currently doing and stuff. But Walter, yeah, your Orion was a lot of fun. Absolutely. So I was one of those 5 people buying it.
Okay, good.
There you go.
Stoller was a lot of fun, but why they didn't use his costume in the movie, I find very offensive.
Yeah, check out Apocalypse.
Hi. So I was wondering, since like Fantastic Four, even though it's a very like high stakes cosmic book, it's deeply personal with like the characters and like the family dynamics. And I was wondering, like for any of you, like what if there were specific like family dynamics or like moments from like your own family or like childhood growing up that like kind of influenced how you wrote the book or did the art for the book, or just like anything you like directly pulled from your own like family experience specifically.
Nobody here probably knows what the Andy Hardy movies are.
I do.
I know.
Well, yeah,
the dais
all you
knows.
old guys
The
on
dais
the dais,
certainly knows exactly.
You guys all know who they are.
Mickey
So
Rooney
nobody,
movies.
they're all going, who?
Family dynamics, Mickey
It was
Rooney.
a series of
Three Stooges.
Another interesting
well,
family.
it doesn't go for me. But why reason I said it was a series of movies in the 30s and 40s.
30s and 40s.
With Mickey Rooney growing. He was always small, so he was a kid. His father was a judge. It's small town America, probably as America never was, but it was like that in the movies for Hollywood. And it was a very idyllic. Mostly Andy was trying to chase grades or girls. And it was, and they had Judy Garland was in it, Lana Turner. They had a lot of their young starlets would come up through that, and there were a bunch of them. And so it really was an idyllic America. And Howard Chaykin, whom you probably all know who that is, Howard Chaykin has told me, I am the Andy Hardy of comics.
You are the Andy Hardy?
I'm the Andy Hardy
Outstanding.
of comics.
He is. That's true.
And
Bright-eyed optimist.
And so my childhood, I'm not sure idyllic is the right word, but it was really, I didn't have a lot of trouble. I did not go through what, say, Jim Shooter went through, the stuff that people had. So I probably wasn't looking at a family unit as a dysfunctional unit as far as the comic was concerned, and I didn't write it that way. I'd have had to step aside deliberately and figure out some way to do that if I'd gone that direction. And I didn't have to, so I was only in the book a year and a half, so. But I probably borrowed from the family unit I came from, which was pretty functional. Very traditionally, it was traditionally American. My father was the breadwinner, my mother was the homemaker. She did some stuff, like she was the librarian in the local elementary school and did a lot of other stuff as well, charity work. But I had that kind of background. And so that's informed what I was doing, but didn't give me a bunch of conflict. Is what you have to write stories.
Anybody else want to hit the family thing to answer her question?
Your family's also awful, but you can't. You don't want to get into it.
Well, I mean, the thing, sorry. Much like Walter, it's like you've got these 4 cool characters. How can you put them in situations that test all the elements of it? Like, the doorbell rings, Sue opens the door. Hi, we're from NPR. And Sue's reaction is, Read! Oh, I'm sorry, Susan, didn't I tell you? Things like that. You steal from all the various aspects of life around you. That's what you do for any story, but making it a family gets things even crazier. It's like Johnny's cool at home, but his best friend out on the street is Peter Parker? Well, no, it's Spider-Man. That makes things really weird. And, Ben's latest challenge is Willie Lumpkin, the postman has finally aged out. Nobody else in the Marvel Universe does, but Willie has, and his daughter has replaced him. And it's like, oh, how do I deal with this? I don't know. You take all the elements of life that are normal, and then the minute they show up in the FF, they go crazy. And I mean, the one storyline that I loved working on, and of course that's when I got thrown off the book, was when Reed and Ben, there's an accident, and Reed suddenly finds himself inside the armor and ends up trying to figure out ways to put it to his advantage, and then the armor starts taking over, and suddenly Reed is becoming creepier and creepier, not that he isn't already, and the only person the FF can turn to save him is, of course, Doom, who's running around in rags because the Doom that is in the armor doesn't look nice. He looks creepy. And where do you go from there? Me being me, I would have stuck with that story for, I don't know, a year or 2 if I could get away with it, which is probably why Bobby Chase threw me off the book. But that's what you can do with a team like the FF is, with all the normal stuff done already and done 15 times, you can take what looks normal in the book and just twist it in weird directions. Girl walks out of the back of the house in pajamas and says, everyone's looking at her and say, who the heck are you? And it's only like 5 minutes later that she realizes, wait, Franklin, you're still a kid. Yeah, but you're my older brother. No. And you go on from there. It's easy until it's not, but yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Absolutely. How you doing?
Good. I wanted to ask maybe a little bit of an easy one, but unlike a lot of Marvel teams, Fantastic Four has usually pretty strictly just been Ben, Reed, Sue, Johnny, stuff like that. And unlike, Avengers and X-Men where their teams are rotating a lot, we all love Fantastic Four for being that. But considering that y'all had mentioned you jumped in at various points where the team were in completely different places, has there ever been a lineup that you think you preferred that differed heavily from the norm, like She-Hulk being in,
Sure.
or like Spider-Man being in,
Sure.
like Future Foundation? Has there ever been like a time where you thought maybe the norm, breaking from the norm, was a little bit better?
Well, again, that's what I did, but I mean, I do like Reed, Sue, Ben, and Johnny. I just broke it at that point because it seemed like the thing to do at that point.
And I thought I would steal Steve's idea and break it completely and put 4 new guys in.
I always hated the costume.
Which one?
Which one?
The blue one.
Okay. Really, just in general, the Fantastic, too boring?
No, it's just that it looked so boring, and Salvador was so much fun to play with, and it's like, how can we make this interesting? Well, how many different places can we put the 4? I don't know, but let's give it a shot. And I mean, I grant you, Thing looks weird in a bikini, but that's a whole different discussion. Well, on the other hand, John did that too with Sue having, it's like, let's turn Sue into evil, and it's like, yeah, right. We did that how many times in the X-Men?
Malice.
Yeah.
I prefer the new Fantastic Four. I've been asking to do that book for ages, and that nobody lets me do it. So, because that was actually my one Fantastic Four book that I actually read and I collect, and it makes me think that okay, this is the thing I want to do for living. So, it's because of you, Walter. So thank you. Again. Yes, you won.
All your fault.
All your fault, Walter.
Yeah. Go ahead. And I just want to end off by saying, you guys are inspirations to everybody in this room, and I just hope you recognize that. You appreciate it.
We've got a bucket near the door. Toss a couple buckets. You walk out, we'll be fine.
Also, the next line is, I hope you go on forever.
Yep.
Chucky, how much time we got left?
12-12.
Thank you very much. 12-12? Yes. All right. Thank you.
12 seconds.
Well, I guess. I just want to make sure we had enough time for everybody. Please. Yep.
Hi. So my favorite story and kind of collection of stories is like the build-up to Secret Wars 2015. And so for Jonathan Hickman, what was your favorite part of kind of the collection of stories you did, like with Fantastic Four, Avengers, New Avengers, all those runs? What was your favorite part of building up to that huge event, and how did it feel to do something completely different with that? Because before that, I don't think there's ever been kind of a huge reset like that and a huge, massive change.
Are you able to feel different?
Well, yeah, Jonathan unfortunately couldn't make the panel today, but just a little bit of the history there. Jonathan came in. He talked a little bit about this yesterday at the Marvel panel. Jonathan had come into Marvel on Secret Warriors through Bendis, and then he was given the opportunity to pitch on FF, and he came into his first creative summit, which is his biannual meetings that we had, and he's like, all right, I want to talk about my Fantastic Four ideas, and then he reached into his bag and he pulled out like 7 moleskin notebooks and put them on the table. He's like, well, I have an 8-year plan, and everyone's like, wait, who is this guy?
That's it.
And sure enough, he lived up to it. But Jonathan was saying on the panel, he really didn't have everything grounded for Secret War and the Maker just yet, until a few pieces that came together as he was writing. And I think, as all these guys on the panel can attest, you have ideas for a story, but the stories take on a life of their own. And I think that's what Jonathan was saying, is that the story took on a life of its own, and something clicked. I forget exactly what it was, and that's when he knew he had the idea for Secret Wars. And he wanted to call it something different, and Tom's like, that book will never sell.
Right, and I'm sorry, you'll have to listen to my podcast where we recorded the panel, and he did describe that. I'll tell you, my favorite moment of Hickman's story is when he killed Johnny. And not that, because I love Johnny, but all the aftermath. And listen, we all know comic book deaths come and go. That's fine. But really, for that moment of the status quo, exactly, Chris. But it's like, what are you doing with it afterwards? And just how everyone was individually, the family was processing Johnny's death. And my favorite moment, well, two, and first of all, Reed looking in the negative zone, hoping to find Johnny, and Annihilus holding up Johnny's shirt. So he knows, Reed knows he's screwed, so he doesn't win. But Ben, oh my God. And seriously, sometimes it brings me to tears, so if I start crying, you'll understand. But the Thor, the Hulk, and Hercules all show up. And they kind of provoke Ben, if you remember, into a fist fight. And it's really to get his aggression out. And it ends with Ben holding the Hulk's shoulders and burying his head in his chest, and all three of them looking down very solid, like, yeah, man, we get it. You lost your brother. And then, of course, even a third one, Spider-Man with Franklin on the rooftop. And he's like, I know what it feels like to lose an uncle. And it's like, Johnny, you're coming up with this stuff. And again, with all the Counselor Reeds and everything else that's crazy, here's this really great family story. And that's Hickman, man. And Fraction 2, his run was amazing as well. And they were both kind of, and everybody, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I would say in recent memory, also with what Ryan North and Humberto are doing, I mean, that's the thing, man. Every now and then you get these like golden teams that just really get it. So that's how I'd say about Hickman. Sorry, Johnny isn't here. Go to his table and ask him. You got to ask him and everything. He's here he's here for a few more hours.
Yeah, thank you.
I had a question for various members. In your runs on Fantastic Four, you got to create original characters in each of your runs. I'm thinking of some I like. I'd like to know which one do you like? I'm thinking about characters like Steve Englehart's Facade or Chris Claremont's Lockdown and Rosetta Stone,
Nice.
and Walter Simonson's Joseph Stalin Robot. So I'm just wondering, which ones did you feel the best on your individual runs? Which ones did you like, the ones that you created to the canon of the Fantastic Four?
The Robot.
Yeah, I was going to say. Great name for a punk band, Walter. Joseph Stalin's Robot. I'm seeing them at the club later tonight. They're a fantastic band.
Facade was, I mean, I needed a villain, and I came up with Facade. I don't know that I have, that he was a high point in anything. Or, I remember saying, don't make him look like a stereotypic Arab, and then they kind of did. But, other than that, I don't have anything else to add to that.
Chris? Nothing? Original character from your run?
I mean, the problem is every time I leave the run, the characters disappear. So,
right. Nobody's because really that's the greatest compliment when you guys do create something and somebody else is like, wait, I got an idea about Facade. Let me play with that.
well, the problem, looking at it from that perspective, is when the character vanishes, it's a different reaction. So, I mean, yeah, there are characters I thought were really great that I enjoy, but since Rosetta and Lockdown only came back when I did my Secret Wars, I'm glad I really appreciate the fact that you like them. Mm-hmm. That's a great compliment. It's just, we're it, babe.
Okay. Thank you guys. Thanks.
Hi, this question is for any or all of you. The Fantastic Four as a property and as a group of characters, there can be the perception that it's kind of static because it's almost always these four guys, or these three guys and one woman, who very often their personalities kind of don't change. And in the case of The Thing, that's great. He was amazing from the jump. But Reed Richards can get kind of pigeonholed to being the stuffy science guy, and Johnny Storm can be, the young hothead, again, despite being the same age for 30 years. I think he's gone through stories where he grows up a little bit, 5 or 6 times, and then he always goes back to kind of being the same thing. I was just wondering, did you ever feel constrained with the characters kind of being these familiar archetypes? Did you ever... did anybody ever try to tell you, any editors, like how much you could vary from the established characterizations? Just anything about just dealing with those 4 characters for the most part?
Well, Stan's rule was, you're given these books for a certain amount of time, have a good time, but when you're done, put them back on the shelf the way you found them, because someone's going to come in after you with a totally different take on it. That's the reality. At least that's
so that going in, obviously.
Stan's a hard person to ignore.
Exactly.
It's a communal, creative effort, like a Marvel universe, and so it's like a big sandbox. Everybody plays in their corner of it, their edges, whatever it is, and you do that with the knowledge that it's quite likely when you're done, you're building your castles, and you walk away from them. The next guy's going to come around, kick them over, and then start building their own castles. So, and you hope, I don't really care if people follow what I do or not. I especially like it when they come follow me and they're lousy, because it makes me feel really good. But basically, I want them, I don't want them to write my characters. I want them to write those guys as their characters, because that'll make for a better comic. So, the FF, there's, in the beginning, everybody was static, because there wasn't until about, Avengers 16 or thereabouts when they suddenly changed the lineup of the characters.
Yep.
And that was about the first time I think they took a regular team. And some other teams like the X-Men, I think stayed the X-Men in the original run up until when they got canceled and then Len took over, did
right.
the first issue. When they brought in new guys to begin, then Chris brought in like 8 million new guys. So in that sense, the FF, they weren't so different than anybody else. But you can write characters differently, and I think people have in the FF. Mm-hmm. So I don't think any of our FFs are exactly alike.
Oh, definitely not.
And then you can find stuff to write with characters that makes a difference and makes the book feel different. And so I think that in the FF it is a little different from the books where the characters rotate like crazy, but the characterizations rotate like a lot in the FF. I will say also every character in Marvel Universe has a little sphere around him that's his own time stream, and they just evolve in their own time stream without regard to anybody else's. So you have some characters who've aged, like Willie Lumpkin, out of the book, and other characters who will never change from whatever age they are. So you just have to get used to that when you're a reader. You pick up on it and you stay with it without it being said.
Great. Thank you very much.
Humberto, you got saddled with, like we said earlier, Johnny with the mustache and stuff. So from an aesthetic standpoint,
what about that?
Yeah, well, I'm saying, for an aesthetic standpoint, are there plans to get rid of it?
I'm free to say, I guess, that I actually asked to remove the mustache, and the answer was no.
Oh man, hilarious.
No. It wasn't the editor.
It was Ryan, obviously.
Yeah, and he has a plan. He has and his point was really interesting. So okay, I'm playing with that, and I just changed a little bit of the mustache to make it look something that I like watching. So
what if it was always on fire?
No, he looks nice now, I guess.
What if it was always on fire?
Yeah,
so he had a flaming mustache.
Flaming mustache.
He's
another good name for a punk band.
Flame on, man.
Is that how you know he's really angry?
I like that Ryan has a plan for Johnny. There's a story plan for Johnny's mustache.
He has a plan for everybody.
That's outstanding.
And about the other thing that he was asking before, I always quote something that I think Stan said. I don't know. Maybe correct me because maybe I've been quoting the wrong thing. Like next week comic is somebody else. It's somebody's new comic.
You
First
got
comic.
It.
Yeah.
You got
That's Stan.
Every issue is some reader's first issue, so you've got to be able to bring them in
exactly
without
you
like
got
a
it.
giant.
So. Because of that, and now with the movies and everything, like everybody is now complaining, like, oh, a new origin story. Oh, we're gonna see the origin story again. Like, dude, yes, because there's a new audience every 5 years, and if you bring a new character to play the hero you like, there's a new audience to that, and you have to respect that. Yes. So I think that's my take on the previous question. When I do I know I would like them to grow up as I did when I was a kid. When I was a kid reading Spider-Man, I of course want to see him growing as me and having the same problems that I had as it was when I was a kid. When he was in high school and I was in high school, I feel related to him because like, wow, he's having, this kid is same as I am. And now I'm a grown up and I have kids of my own, and he's still, the same age, kind of, right? So, but I have to also be aware that as I was back in the day, there's a new kid that would feel related to that character that I fell in love with.
That's excellent. I'm sorry we're out of time, and I would ask you guys to please go to their tables and ask these questions, but we got to make room for the next panel. But what a great, and isn't it interesting, we talked for 55 minutes, barely talked about the movie, because there's so much else to talk about with the FF. Thanks a lot, gentlemen.
Thank you,
well
everybody.
Done.